You're gonna need a bigger boat. Why so serious?
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the InSession Film Podcast.
Welcome to episode 657 for October 6, 2025, and I'm Jada Duran.
And I'm Brennan Cassidy.
Hey, thanks for joining us, everybody. It is Tron Aries week, and that means one thing. It has become the National Week of 9 Inch Nails.
Okay,
where
good
we
answer.
Celebrate 9
Good
Inch
answer.
Nails all week long. Every day you have to create an essay and talk about your favorite 9 Inch Nails track.
They have a lot. They have a lot. How much 9 Inch Nails have you listened to, JD?
Admittedly, I don't know it in depth. I've listened actually to them a lot, but I wouldn't call myself a super fan in the sense that I don't know the names of tracks or maybe even albums, but if you play a song, I would recognize it. Does that make sense? Like, that's
makes
kind of
perfect
where
sense.
my fandom lies.
I'm sure you've at least heard of songs like Head Like a Hole or The Hand That Feeds and some of
Yes.
those. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have. They took the industrial rock scene by storm when they came out. I'm a pretty big 9 Inch Nails fan. And I would, if you ever get a chance to go through some of their albums, their discography specifically, I'd be curious to see which ones really stick out to you the most. Some of them are actually very cinematic.
Oh, I would imagine so.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always loved everything that I've come across. I've really enjoyed it. Generally, my life is so busy and hectic. I wish that I had time to listen to music like you do.
It's a second job
could be
for me.
more
I kinda have
intentional
to.
about it.
Yeah.
My day is so insanely busy between InSession Film stuff and other things that I'm doing. It is remarkable how much is packed into 8-9 hours. And then I go home and then it's chaos with my kids. So, it's a miracle that I can get movies in, let alone music.
Well,
And audiobooks and podcasts. It's not,
Well-
there's so much to consume.
Well, the
You know?
bright side is that you will be getting your earful of the latest 9 Inch Nails album this week, regardless. You will be absorbing that in its own way, but you are getting it.
And that is an album I have listened to. I've listened to the entirety of the Tron Aries soundtrack already. So I am very excited to see what it means in context of the film. Despite the Jared Leto of it all, I am very, very excited for Tron Aries. I'm a big Tron head. I love the original Tron movie from the 80s, as goofy as it is. It's very 80s in its aesthetic, but I love it. Tron Legacy, I think, rules. I'm a huge champion of that film.
That is it's not his best movie, but it is my favorite Joseph Kosinski film as a director. I mean, Tron. I mean, the Top Gun Maverick is certainly his best.
Oh
but
yeah, for sure.
Tron Legacy is the one I just have such a weird soft spot.
It's so good. I think it's great. I think it's only gotten better over time.
Oh yeah,
And I have really come to appreciate so much about that movie. Not just, of course, the Daft Punk of it all, which is legendary, but also I think it's a pretty good father-son movie as well.
sure.
I really dig it a lot. And of course, there's the whole Tron of it all, which is just a ton of fun.
Movie still looks kind of awesome.
It
Like
looks
that's
great. Yeah.
like that's a movie that is the complete antithesis to how we talk about CGI soup, the whole green screenery thing that we see in so many movies these days. Tron Legacy is a movie that does that and somehow makes it look great. It really utilizes that
It's really
choice
good.
to its advantage.
Yeah. The only thing that's super aged with that film is the facial CGI on Jeff Bridges. But that was the first time they had implemented that technology.
That's never going to stand the test of time.
No. That's always going to live in the uncanny valley.
In every movie,
Always.
even the movies at the time that were praised for how well they utilized it, such as Martin Scorsese's The Irishman, for instance, right?
Yeah.
You go back and rewatch that. It looks pretty wonky nowadays.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't mind it nearly as much in that movie. I think the Captain Marvel movie, how they used it on Sam Jackson's pretty good as well. So like, I
you're right. That
don't
one's
mind
good.
it in certain circumstances, but yeah, that early CG on Jeff Bridges is a little weird. But aside from that, I agree with you. The world building of Legacy, I think, holds up gloriously. It's
inventive.
beautiful. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Really, really love it. I think the film is a lot of fun. So I am looking forward to Tron Ares. So on this week's show, using that as inspiration, we're going to be talking about our top 5 soundtracks in film. No shortage of greatness to choose from there.
No, this was easy. What are you talking about?
I'm very much looking forward to getting into this, though. That's going to be really great. We'll talk about that more in the back half of the episode.
Yeah.
I will say, though, here up front, just on the theme of soundtracks, I have been converted as a K-pop Demon Hunter worshiper. I have joined the cult of the Demon Hunters.
I feel like it's a pretty big island, though, that you're on.
Oh my gosh, it's a huge island. Yeah. Some people might need to be kicked off the island. But
they need to start making room for new people.
It's really great. Look, it's popular, I think, for a great reason. It's one of those instances where I think its popularity is very well earned. And it's going to get Oscar nominations for Best Original Song. I think the question is how many? 1, 2, maybe 3, who knows? Where do they draw the line?
Has there ever been a case where a movie has been nominated at least 3 times in Best Original Song all at once? We need the Oscar experts on that question.
I would love to know. It's obviously happened twice, several different times.
Yeah.
So I would not at all be shocked if it gets 2 in there.
Yeah.
But can it get a 3rd? It's very possible. I think just in terms of how much people are going for the soundtrack of that movie. And man, it is quite good. It is really, really good. It certainly helps 5. That Sam listens to it incessantly all the time. He loves it. And not only does he love the music, he's got all the dance moves down.
That's going to give it an edge to even win that Oscar, regardless of how many songs gets nominated. Because what if many of these members of the Academy that are voting in that category are also parents who have kids that are just like Sam, who are very into it? That's going to give it an edge, and it's going to inspire them to want to vote for that movie.
I think so as well. I mean, and we've heard this before through those anonymous ballots that always come out every single year where people talk about, especially with animated film, I'm voting for Disney, or I'm voting for, like, I only saw the Disney movies. I only saw the Pixar movies. You know, you get those kind of responses all the time, which is extremely annoying, but it is indicative that there's at least a contingent. I don't know how large it is, but there's at least a contingent of voters when it comes to something like animated movies, where their whole experience with that category is based off of their children and being exposed to those movies through their children. So that's what they vote for. So I think you're absolutely onto something there, that many of these voters are probably being introduced to this film through the insane popularity of how it's registering with children, which will reach their parents, aka the voters in the Academy. So absolutely, it's really good. My favorite song on that soundtrack, though, is one of the lesser popular ones. I don't know if I should reveal that or save it, because it may come up later on in other shows that we do.
I was going to say, because there's going to be a lot of representation for that movie when it comes to InSession Film Awards, I would imagine.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So maybe I'll save it for that.
Okay.
But there's one particular track. I really like the entire soundtrack. It's all incredibly diverting, but there's one track that I find extremely moving that I love. So maybe I'll save it. But anyway,
okay.
I've been converted. That's the moral of the story.
My nieces love it as well. So it's
Oh my gosh.
it's making
Yeah.
the
Huge.
amount. I mean, you talk about Sam maybe wanting to do something related to that movie for Halloween. We're going to see a lot of kids dressed up as that movie for Halloween.
Yeah, he's going back and forth. And also there's a school competition coming up where he's thinking about entering this contest at his school, and he was talking to me tonight about how that's what he wants to do. Is he's not going to sing Your Idol. That's the song that he loves the most, but he knows the dance moves.
That's so cute.
Like every single move, he knows it by heart. So he might just go in there and do the dance of it, and that's going to be his entry into the contest.
Okay.
So we'll see how that goes.
You got to film that if he does it.
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, and I have video of it of him doing it at home. I think I even posted it on Twitter.
Put it on his
a couple
YouTube
weekends
channel.
ago. I might have to. Yeah. Well, if we can get away with it, YouTube is weird with copyright music.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you'll have to add some type of commentary over top of it just to drown out the actual audio itself.
That's why I posted it on Twitter, because no one gives a shit on Twitter.
No one does. It's very unregulated by comparison.
Yeah. Maybe I can get away with it on TikTok. I haven't tried. But a couple of weeks ago, I may have mentioned this on the show, that he made his own little movie theater for us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Tickets. I think I talked about that last week on the show.
Yeah, he created ticket stubs and popcorn and snacks
all that,
and everything.
all that sort of stuff. And of course, K-Pop Demon Hunters was the only showing at his theater. So that's what we watched. And it gets to that moment where they play Your Idol and he gets up and he does the whole dance. I filmed the whole thing. It was awesome.
That's awesome.
So
Love it.
if anyone wants to see it, it is on my Twitter if you want to go and check it out. Speaking of Twitter, I threw out something today about about One Battle After Another and its box office. We talked about this a little bit last week because One Battle After Another, it comes out of the gate fairly strong for a movie of its ilk.
Mm-hmm.
Worldwide, it was sitting around 50 million. It was a little north of 50 million, I want to say,
north of 50,
collectively, worldwide. So its second weekend did pretty well. It adds another 50 million, and currently it is north of $100 million worldwide, which is quite incredible. So last week we were contemplating, what if it just gets to 80? That would be incredible for that movie. Not only does it surpass 80, it essentially equals its opening weekend numbers, again, worldwide, and has now become north of $100 million. Now, look, in terms of conventional perspective, yes, it is still underperforming. It will not make its money back when you include marketing and all of those other expenses. Could it reach its initial budget of around $150 million? It's very much looking likely, especially when we get to premium VOD, when we get to the awards, Oscars re-releases, Blu-ray sales, all that sort of stuff. It's going to make its money back. At least its budget back, I should say.
Yeah.
And who knows, over time, maybe it will become profitable. That's not out of the question. I guess it depends on what the marketing is. We don't really know those numbers, but there's a lot of speculation that it's got to get to 300,000 to break even. But here's the thing about One Battle After Another. Warner Brothers, and we did mention this last week, but it's worth reiterating, especially now that it has crossed that $100 million threshold. And there's, of course, discourse around this because people are championing the film. They're excited for Paul Thomas Anderson. It's obviously his biggest movie ever at the box office. But a lot of people want to remind audiences that it's still technically a bomb. And like, who cares? That's ultimately where I'm at with this.
These
Warner
people
Brothers.
don't. Yeah. Go ahead.
So I guess just to finish that thought, Warner Brothers, they do not care that the film is losing money. They gave Paul Thomas Anderson $150 million full on knowing that it was not going to make its money back. If it did, over time, that's just a cherry on top. I think this is an incredible haul, given the context of 2025 and where we're at with the box office and what makes up the box office. For Warner Brothers, all they care about is Oscars. That's all they want. They want to win Oscars for this movie. It's going to get probably gobs of nominations. If it walks away with 2 or 3 Oscars, as far as Warner Brothers is concerned, the film can lose all the money in the world. They don't care. They've made $4 billion this year. $4 billion. By far the biggest year for any studio. They are the meme of DiCaprio and the Wolf of Wall Street just throwing money in the air. They do not care about how much money this film is going to lose. They don't care.
Well, those who are calling this a box office bomb by definition, they don't have the information. They don't have the context of why this specific movie is different than really any other movie. It can't be measured in the same metrics. And a lot of them I'm about to say here, I did hear Sean Fennessy speak about during a recent episode of the Big Picture podcast. So I can't take credit for this research. He brought this up, and I think he makes a lot of valid points. And this is what makes a movie like One Battle After Another so different than really any other movie this year, and why it can't be weighed against the same metrics. But he brought up a name, Mike DeLuca. And for those who don't know who that is, he is the co-chair of the film division of Warner Brothers right now. He was also the executive at New Line Cinema that helped get Boogie Nights and Magnolia off the ground. So connections, right? And on top of that too, I think part of the monetary agenda with a movie like One Battle After Another was also to help, I guess, refinance the Turner Classic Movies subdivision of Warner Brothers, which, if that's the case and the movie's pulling this kind of money, that is an awesome win. Like that
Big
makes
time.
this makes this movie such a huge anomaly when it comes to how we weigh box office success, because the goal with this movie was not necessarily to make that type of money by doubling its budget by 2.5 times in order to actually break even. It's a different metric. This is a completely different goal and a completely different metric.
Yep. I wasn't fully aware of that context. I find that utterly fascinating and adds even more heft to the argument that I'm trying to make. This film was never trying to win, quote unquote, win the box office in any conventional sense.
Yeah.
Even if Warner Brothers had a few other losses this year, I still don't think they were ever expecting One Battle After Another to be this huge box office sensation. Not in 2025. Maybe 20 years ago, they would have had different expectations. I don't know.
Maybe.
But they gave Paul Thomas Anderson all that money because they believe in Paul Thomas Anderson and this film. And it is going to be a major awards player. That was always the end goal here. That's the end game. We're in the end game. And it's going to get God knows how many nominations. 10, perhaps. And out of those nominations, how many Oscars does it take home? Now, obviously, it's very early in the season. We don't really know. But it's likely going to win at least 1, maybe 2, who knows, 3 or more.
I think at the very least, this is Paul Thomas Anderson's year to win Best Director.
I think director is on the table. Editing is very much on the table.
Score is on the table.
Obviously
cinematography.
Picture. Cinematography.
Yeah.
I think DiCaprio's going to be in the conversation in some way, shape, or form.
If anything, it maybe comes down to Hamnet and the edge that movie has. And I know a lot of people have talked about this as a prediction of sorts when it comes to how the Oscars will shake up. But this, I could actually see it being a Hamnet winning Best Picture with One Battle After Another winning Best Director. Like kind of like, like they reward the technical achievement in one way and then the actual movie in another way. So you kind of get that split going.
The only caveat there, and it's really hard to predict what kind of impact this is going to have, because it came out really early on in the year, and secondly, it's a genre movie. Sinners, also a huge sensation this year. I could see that film posing a major threat to One Battle After Another. At the same time, it wouldn't shock me if it's not a major contender in the same way that we want it to be.
No, but I think it's still high on the list right now as far as where these predictions are going. The movie Sinners specifically, and the Academy likes to recognize a genre movie if they can actually argue for it. Like a movie like Mad Max Fury Road. Yeah, and you can absolutely do that for Sinners. I'd say the one thing that maybe Sinners has against it that might limit its chances, which is this is a possibility, but this is maybe not likely. And that's if another genre movie like Avatar Fire and Ash just completely surprises everybody.
Yes.
It's possible. I don't see that happening. I think Sinners will hold on to that status as the Academy's genre representation. But I could see it pretty high there.
I agree. And on its best day, it's going to rival for director, maybe picture, cinematography, music as well. Sinners, if the Academy treats it the way that they should, it will absolutely contend for all of those same categories that One Battle After Another is going after, for the most part. So we'll see. We'll see on that. But either way, One Battle After Another is going to be a major, major, major Oscars player. Yeah. That was always the end goal for Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
And the only caveat there, and this would have been a fingers crossed Hail Mary, is if all of their other films bombed this year and they just needed a win.
Yeah.
But they were not banking on that, obviously. That would have been ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
They were always planning on this film losing money. You don't give $150 million to a movie like this and go, you know what? We might make money on it in 2025.
Well, yeah. And especially if Paul Thomas Anderson is already so tight with the co-chair of the film division at Warner Brothers. He's got that connection already. They're going to let that happen. It's building connections. That's what the name of the game is sometimes.
Yeah. But look, they played their cards very well. $4 billion they've grossed this year. They do not give one iota of a shit about any money this film quote unquote loses. They don't care.
They don't.
They don't care. Which is what makes its success at the box office, I think, kind of fascinating.
Well, I think it could be studied for that reason.
You could make the argument, and I understand that, yes, when you look at the numbers objectively, it's, at least at this point, it is a losing battle. But given the kind of film that it is, for it to cross $100 million, a threshold that Paul Thomas Anderson has never done before. Rarely does he come, he's never come close to this, really, outside of what There Will Be Blood. There Will Be Blood was the only other time he came even close.
This has already surpassed There Will Be Blood's entire theatrical box office run, right? Because that was, 80-some million, I think that movie what was that?
And that's why we chose that number last week to beat There Will Be Blood. So it's gone past that, gone over 100 million. It only needs another 50 to get back to its initial budget. And at the rate that it's going, it is going to probably do that in the next couple of weeks before it leaves theaters. And again, we haven't even begun to calculate premium VOD, Blu-ray sales, whatever the re-release strategy is going to be once it gets its Oscar nominations. All of that will eventually accumulate to the point where it probably makes that 150 back. And then over time, as you get more Blu-ray sales and all that sort of stuff, again, I don't think it might not ever get to 300 million, but for Warner Brothers in a year where they've had nothing but success, for this film to only sort of fail is kind of insane.
It's apparently doing really well overseas.
Yeah.
So, yeah, which is kind of interesting. But if anything, these numbers suggest that regardless of the profitability of a movie like this, there's still interest in a movie like this. And I think that's the winning conversation here.
I agree. 100%.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the perspective of it should be.
Yeah.
Looking at this through any sort of conventional lens, I don't say this to be mean to anyone that is looking at it through that prism, but I do think it's a bit myopic. I do think there's a larger context here that you have to consider.
I agree.
And
good movie.
It's awesome. I'm extremely thrilled that it is getting the haul that it is. Great movie. Love it. I cannot wait to see what kind of haul it brings in terms of awards.
Yeah.
Should be very exciting. All right. Moving on. Next topic I want to bring up here. And I somewhat primed Brendan for this, but I also told him it was going to be a little bit of a surprise.
Well, I was looking at my previous tweets to see if I can guess what you're about to bring up. I have a potential guess, but let's see. Let's see if you pull the rug from under my feet.
All right. So what I want to bring up here is something that I think is very exciting. I think we need to get someone on the phone.
Oh,
Do you
okay.
know who I'm talking about?
Whoever's going to bankroll Sam Raimi to make Spider-Man 4.
Yeah. Yeah. How do we get him on the phone? Who do we need to talk to over at Sony to greenlight this?
Well, Kirsten Dunst said she'd be interested.
Yes, absolutely. And for any context, if you don't know what we're talking about here, Kirsten Dunst, in an interview, said that she is interested in doing Spider-Man 4, which, of course, we would love to see her in Spider-Man 4 as well. Tobey Maguire coming back. That'd be very exciting. And what she said is she would like to see the movie where Peter Parker and MJ become parents. And I love that idea. I think that's an incredible idea.
I think that was the response. The general consensus was, yeah, give us that movie. We would love to see that movie.
Are you kidding me? I would absolutely love to see that movie. And I think there'd be some great dramatic components involved there, especially given the moral compass of Peter and still doing the Spider-Man thing. But now being a father, that adds a whole other level of nuance to his moral compass and what he chooses or chooses not to do. I think they're like, just as a piece of, as a work of drama, my Lord, there's a lot to mine there. And in the hands of Sam Raimi, it's over. It's over.
When you look at Sam Raimi's previous movies, his genre movies specifically, do you know what other movie of his was also a great drama? That was Spider-Man 2.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's capable of doing that in the realm of a very accessible commercial blockbuster. This just sounds like an easy win. This sounds like an easy win. I mean, I say easy win kind of facetiously because I know how difficult it is to make a good movie. I say easy win in the sense that the amount of people that would be interested in going to see this, it's an easy win financially.
Yeah, and he's already sort of dabbled in that arena with Doctor Strange, right? When you look at Wanda and her wanting to go after her children. Now, the motivations are obviously very different. So it's not as if he's going to be regurgitating something he's already done before. That's not at all the case. But as far as having superpowers and having children and how that affects your decisions, he's already kind of dabbled with that psychology. But now he gets to do it in a new and very different way with Peter Parker, should they decide to go this route. And I think that's actually quite fascinating. As simple as that idea is, or how it may sound, I think there's a lot to chew on there.
Well, honestly,
that would be fantastic.
The simpler that it is, the more room for dramatic sincerity there is too.
And I would also love to see how he plays with just the DNA of it all. Like if he has kids, if Peter has kids, do they have powers as well?
Well, this just seems like an easy marketing ploy for Sony as well. To almost, I mean, it depends on how much they're willing to own up to how they basically screwed up Spider-Man 3. Because part of the marketing could absolutely be, listen, we know we got our hands too much into Spider-Man 3. This new movie is us letting Sam Raimi do his thing. Essentially a blank check movie. You can market it as a blank check movie, and that is going to trigger so much excitement from not just the fans, but probably general people as well.
Yeah. And look, there's already a foundation for it in the comics. Mayday Parker is the daughter of Peter and Mary Jane in some of the comics. So you do have that to go off of if you want, or maybe create something entirely on its own.
Yeah.
Whichever direction you want to take it. But I certainly trust Sam Raimi if he decides to do that. You just put that idea in front of him, and I think he would absolutely nail it. And I think it'd be a lot of fun. I want to see it. How do we get him on the phone? Or should we get Sony on the phone? How can we make this happen? That's all I want to know.
Kickstarter?
Yeah. We got to get Sony's attention.
Just fund a bunch of money and, I don't know, hold the movie hostage.
Or we hold a billionaire hostage and then force him to pay for it.
There we go.
He's not gonna miss it.
Yeah, kind of like how Robert De Niro, Rupert Pupkin in The King of Comedy, kidnapped someone to get his way. We can do the same thing, but with Sony.
Like, have you ever played that game of like how to spend Bill Gates' money?
No.
You know what I'm talking about? There's this
I've heard
online game. It's been around for a few years where the whole goal is to spend all of his billions of dollars, and it's damn near impossible. Like, you have to get incredibly cartoonish where you're buying like a million yachts. You're buying all of the sports clubs that exist in the world. Like, you have to get incredibly cartoonish in order to spend.
You basically
that
have
much
to
money.
be you have to become a Bond villain.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just insane. And if you want to buy movies, like, you can make genuinely, a billion movies, and you still would have money left over. Like, it's crazy. Like, and again,
So
I say all of that to say, like, Bill Gates could fund this, and like someone could steal that money and he wouldn't even know it.
So basically, there shouldn't be an excuse that says something along the lines of, we don't have the money to make it. The money exists. The money
exists. Yeah, go get it. Bill, what are you doing? Make Spider-Man 4. That's all I'm saying.
That should be his next project.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'd be there. I'd be there first day for that movie, of course.
Yeah, I know. All right, before we get to our top 5, one other thing I want to get to here real fast. There was something pretty funny going around last week where it seems as if Fast and Furious is dead in the water.
Quite literally.
We may never get the ending.
Speaking of money that apparently doesn't exist. That's part of why I guess this is happening.
So, and it was really funny because the report comes out that there's actually no plan currently to shoot the last Fast and Furious movie, even though Vin Diesel on his Instagram had posted something that he's going back into the streets. It was very suggestive of, okay, yeah, we're about to do this movie.
Yeah.
But it's all in contradiction of what we know to be true about it, and that the studio currently has no script, has absolutely no plans to make it at the current moment.
Yeah. Well, there is potentially a through line there between Vin Diesel's most recent comments regarding the movie and how it's going to be a bit more of a return to form, like the first movie was, a simple heist movie on the streets of LA, which is basically his way of saying we're making a creative choice to cut the budget down. But in actuality, they're being forced to cut the budget down because I guess Fast 10, whatever the hell it's called, did not do as well as it should have. So
no.
Yeah.
And do you remember what those numbers are? I'd have to
not
I'd have to
offhand.
look it up. Maybe
Not
I can
offhand.
look it up here real fast as we talk, because I don't really remember. Let's see here. Fast X. So it worldwide 704.8 million, 67 domestic opening, but I don't know what its budget was.
Apparently its budget was around 340.
Okay. 340.
That's too much.
And that's just the budget. That's not including marketing.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Okay. If the budget alone was 340 and then you include marketing, you got to imagine that's doubled. So 704, that's not going to cut it.
Now, this source I'm seeing says the budget was actually closer to 380.
That's even worse. a budget of 380 plus marketing, 704 is not going to get it done. Absolutely not. So I could see why the studio's like, let's think about this for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Let's pause on this. Let's think through what we want to do here. I thought Fast 10 was okay.
Yeah, I didn't love
Momoa was fun.
He saved it. He absolutely saved that movie.
Did. But I think, look, there's, maybe this is cynical of me, I don't know, but I would find it extremely hilarious if the franchise just ended. After all of these sequels, how many sequels have we gotten to? We've had a spinoff of this franchise. It would just be really funny if after all of that, we never got a conclusion.
Oh, I love that. Apparently the conclusion is that they all die by a giant dam flood.
They all die. Because that's one interpretation of it, given the ambiguity of how that ends.
Not even just the ambiguity, but also the post-credit scene. I saw someone on Twitter reanalyze that post-credit scene that reintroduced Gal Gadot. Yeah. Brought her character back, and someone said, well, that is now clearly them entering the gates of hell, being greeted by that character.
Yeah, that's a great interpretation. I like that. Yeah.
It kind of makes me like the franchise even more if that is ultimately how it's going to end. I kind of love that.
They've all died and gone to hell. Yeah, I mean, I just think that's hilarious. That's very, very funny, especially when the franchise could have ended on a beautiful note with 7. But of course, they were never going to end there given the financial success of that movie. But I guess the moral of the story, when you're motivated by box office numbers instead of artistic integrity, not that this franchise is full of that, but those like 5, 6, and 7, genuinely very good blockbusters.
That's a good trilogy within this whole franchise.
It's a good trilogy.
I kind of feel like that. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Just to cap that off, if you end there, I think we all look back at the legacy of the franchise with fondness. But you got greedy. You got greedy. You wanted to continue the franchise. And then 8, 9, maybe a little bit better, 10, not it. So like the last 3, not very good. And now you're at a point where you might have to enter the Divergent realm. And it's all over. It's all over. And I can't help but laugh at that.
I feel like they only made that 8th movie because of the wordplay of calling it the Fate of the Furious, because it sounds like the number 8. I feel like that's the only reason why that movie got made.
Maybe. I mean, who knows? Who knows?
Well, this is proof that movies are suffering because of being over budget. The budgeting for these movies is getting out of hand. Yeah.
When you're forced to make $1 billion just to profit, like that's crazy.
Well,
that's crazy.
This also happened, and we talked about this offline. I guess this is a nice way to bring it up here because it is kind of a nice tie-in of a story. But Forbes just recently released news that Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny actually cost over $400 million.
That's insane. $400 million for Indiana Jones.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. That's just unacceptable.
Yeah, that means that has to be $1 billion movie just to break even, essentially.
I say that somewhat myopically because I don't know what all goes into those budgets when you're creating a large blockbuster movie in Hollywood. Maybe it's inflated or bloated rather. Maybe it's appropriate. I don't know. Maybe that's just the new world we live in, but they've got to figure out a way to get those numbers down. You can't rely on $1 billion being the threshold for success.
Well, this is why I think Warner Brothers they've been succeeding so well this year, and why Disney hasn't been. And it's because Warner Brothers is not doing what Disney has been doing for so long. Disney has been constantly trying to always chase the next $1 billion movie. That's what their goal is. And it's starting to collapse on them. Warner Brothers isn't doing that. They're budgeting modestly and they're profiting modestly. And then maybe they might get a lucky hit with a Minecraft movie. They continue budgeting modestly, so then they have a string of successes that add up. And then all of a sudden their numbers and their bottom line looks great.
Yeah, and that makes sense. That's certainly been a shrewd business move. I do wish they would put a little bit more artistic merit into what they're doing, because I haven't loved everything they've done. I've liked some of the things they've done, but generally I feel like they're lacking in the quality department. But in terms of budgeting and crafting a movie that can be profitable without going, without hitting that $1 billion mark, I mean, that's a smart move. You got to figure that out. You can't have a budget of $400 million, not for Indiana Jones. That's insane.
No, Indiana Jones, one of the greatest movie characters of all time. Even he's not worth $400 million. Like,
No.
I'm sorry, he's not.
No, that's absolutely absurd. And look, I liked the movie more than a lot of other people did. I did go to bat for it a little bit, but I still think that movie, even as a fan of it, it's not worth that much money.
No.
In terms of making it, like what we get there, it doesn't really, like, the equation is way off there.
Agreed.
To circle it back to Universal real fast, because I'm looking at the final box office numbers for Furious 7, that did make $1.5 billion. So that's the reason we got Fate of the Furious.
Yeah,
1.5.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that's the real reason, even though there was a narrative and thematic and emotional crystallization to it all, they should have stopped.
They should have, you're right.
But you see the bottom line, 1.5, that's pretty good. Let's do another one. No, so that's why you need people in your life to tell you no. No, Brendan, we're not going to do F8 because we have no reason to. Let's do something else. That's what you need in your life.
Yeah.
That's why I have my wife. She
Maybe
tells
she
me
should
no
be running Universal.
all the time.
That way
All the time.
we're not getting unnecessary Fast and Furious movies or unnecessary Jurassic movies.
Yeah, exactly. So, it is what it is. That's the world we live in. But
all this money being thrown around. Jeez, I wonder where it comes from.
Yeah. So if we ever get a sequel to Fast X, who knows? It could be years from now. There's no plan currently. It might be dead in the water, and I think that is quite funny.
I kind of hope it is, because I think that makes the ending of this franchise the most hilarious thing ever.
Those final images of that film, that's the lasting impact. That's just too good.
It's amazing.
So good. All right, Brendan, do you like football?
I do.
You're a big football fan?
Love football.
Yeah, I'm a big football fan as well. In fact, I'm quite the football nerd, quite the hockey nerd as well. But there haven't been any new hockey movies. I don't know why Hollywood hates me so much, but there needs to be a new hockey movie.
The popularity of the sport is increasing. You might get a hockey movie sometime soon, but until then, we just have football movies.
We have football movies, and the latest football movie is actually a horror film directed by Justin Tipping. It has been produced by Jordan Peele, which apparently that's all the marketing focused on was Jordan Peele, to the point where that's all the discourse was. the new Jordan Peele movie, even though it's not his movie.
It's to the point that people think they think he directed the movie.
They think he directed it, but that's not true at all. It was directed by Justin Tipping. Unfortunately, I never got a chance to see this film. It's a blind spot for me at the current moment. I do plan on watching this before the end of the year at some point. I am curious about it, but it came out at a time where we had to prioritize other movies, so it just kind of fell below the radar a little bit.
Yeah, I think it looks intriguing. I think it looks very intriguing.
Yeah, of course, it stars Marlon Wayans, Tyreek Withers, Julia Fox, and others that come and go throughout that movie. And as far as how it tackles football, I've heard mixed things, but I am still intrigued. I am really, really intrigued with how the film uses football as a backdrop to do something in the realm of horror.
Yeah,
I think it's an intriguing premise. Genuinely, it sounds fascinating. So I am curious to check it out. We have 5 digital codes. If you're like me and Brendan, if you haven't seen this and you want to check it out, maybe you want to get one of these digital codes, or maybe you have seen it and you love this movie.
Yeah.
Either way, we will have 5 digital codes to give away. So if you want one of those, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at InSession Film. That is the best way to get your hands on one of these. We will put out a tweet, and all you have to do is interact with that post, and you'll be automatically entered into this giveaway. We just select 5 at random, and if you win, we will DM you. So be sure that you follow us. You have to follow us, because I need to be able to DM you if you win. If I can't get a hold of you, I just have to redraw.
And you can't yell at us for not sending you a winning.
Yes, and that's happened before. I've drawn a name, and then I can't get a hold of them.
Yeah.
So be sure that you follow us, so that way I can get a hold of you and get that digital code to you, because we want to do that. So follow us on social media. We'll sometime later this week, I'll be drawing those names after we put the post out, and maybe you'll win. So with that said, be sure to check us out on social media. Thanks to him for their support. All right, Brendan, we are about to talk about soundtrack music in films. So it's the perfect time to talk about Amazon Music. Amazon Music. It is the premium music subscription service featuring 70 million songs. That is a lot of songs. Thousands of expert programmed playlists and stations. You can listen to any song at any time, anywhere on all of your devices, whatever that may be. You'll never hear or see an ad. And of course, you can download songs and playlists for offline listening as well. It is just absolutely perfect.
Yeah. It also studies you and gets to know you in a way that's not creepy. What it does is it helps personalize your recommendations based on what you're listening to and what your listening habits are from this catalog of over 70 million songs. So that way your playlist can be perfect for whatever situation you're planning, whether it be a dinner party or just a listening session with friends, or if you simply just want to preview the entire Beatles catalog. All of that is available at Amazon Music Unlimited. And of course, as you mentioned, JD, we're about to talk about some of our favorite soundtrack albums.
Yep.
Also, all available on Amazon Music.
Yeah. All the soundtracks we're about to talk about, you'll find it there on Amazon. And you can try it now for free at getamazonmusic.com/InSessionFilm. Again, that link is getamazonmusic.com/InSessionFilm. Of course, we will have that link in the description of this episode. Click on that link and you can try the service for free for 90 days.
That's amazing.
For free for 90 days. That's an incredible offer. So go check out Amazon Music. Listen to all of the songs that we're about to talk about. Check out the playlist. And we thank Amazon Music for their support. All right. With all of that said, let's transition to movie soundtracks. We're going to be talking about our top 5 soundtracks in the world of cinema.
Absolutely.
Before we get into it, Brendan, let's talk about criteria.
Oh yeah, we got it.
Because last week we had a bit of a blunder. We had a conversation talking about maybe some missed criteria, films that could or could not have fit into the mold of our draft last week, and someone yelled at me for it. I got yelled.
You did. You did. I actually felt bad for
Twitter.
you.
Like, it didn't really bother me all that much. I still think the conversation was interesting.
I did too. I think that comment you got was.
I had fun anyway.
I'm gonna say it. That guy was a douchebag.
Well, if you're listening again, we appreciate you listening. I don't know if he's listening anymore, but look, I enjoyed the conversation. I didn't think that it was a waste of time. And look,
me too.
This is a show where we have to talk, and I thought we had a fun little back and forth. As silly as it may or may not have been.
It's not often that you and I get caught off guard like that. And like how we tried to solve it in real time was at least fun for us.
Yeah. And I still hold to my argument, by the way, that those things happened in his life. You can't tell me that it wasn't inspired by real life events. Those things happened to him. Now, did he fictionalize? Of course. I said that. I said that he fictionalized.
Well, but like I said, if I knew that criteria ahead of time, I may have included Bull Durham in my list.
Yeah, that's another one. We didn't really mention that last week, but there are certainly other sports movies, if that's the criteria, that could have been brought up.
I think.
Anyway, movie soundtracks. So let's talk about criteria here with this.
Yeah.
Did you have anything specific, some hardened rules before we get into this?
I did. And when I say I had some hardened rules to the way you put it, that doesn't necessarily mean you and I have to agree on those rules. We just have to establish that up front, that if you decide to have a slightly different criteria, I know what that is ahead of time. And maybe I can reformulate things if I think you make a great argument or a great point for that. But I will say I am not including movie scores. If anything is a pure score, then I'm not including that. I'm trying to look at soundtrack as something that's more song related, which could be original songs for the movie, could be needle drops, pre-existing songs compiled for a movie. It could even be a string of original songs from one single artist that then makes a soundtrack for that particular movie. Like, those are things I am qualifying. That's really the way I'm looking at that. I will say that does also raise a few questions as to what can still be included and what can't. For example, musicals, movie musicals. Technically, those are soundtrack albums. Those are soundtracks, right?
Yep.
I am not opposed to including them if you feel like you need to, for the sake of your list being as true to yours as it can be. I won't be including musicals on my list, though. But that is one that I think does kind of sit in this gray area of sorts, that there's an argument for them still counting. I'm just choosing not to include musicals because I want to focus more on I guess the songs themselves that don't necessarily fit the world diegetically, if that makes sense. You know, something that's meant to support the actual emotional experience, if that makes sense. With that said, though, I am going to include concert films. That I will consider for my list, but I won't be considering musicals for me personally.
Okay, we're pretty much in alignment with this. I am also not including full score soundtracks. There has to be a song component to this.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form. Now, there is one caveat that I will bring up later. Maybe it'll be controversial. Maybe someone will yell at me again. I don't know. But I'll bring that up later. There's a bit of a gray area with one soundtrack that I want to bring up. But generally, I avoided full score soundtracks. So unfortunately, Jablonski, you're out. I love you. Transformers would be in this conversation.
Of all the composers you could, single out here, you go with Steve Jablonski. I love that.
Those scores for Transformers are awesome.
They're pretty underrated. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, but scores will be another top 5 we'll do down the line. And I am very excited for that. I love talking movie scores, but that is a separate conversation, as is musicals. So generally, even though I agree with you that musicals are soundtrack albums and they would qualify here, and I would not blame anyone listening to this if they want to indulge in the exercise. If you wanted to include musicals, by all means, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I also feel like musicals is its own topic. It feels like its own conversation to be had, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where we could talk about our own top 5 musicals. That just feels like its own realm. So I didn't want to include musicals. Now that said, again, I am drawing a little bit of a line here, because when I say musicals, I really mean the conventional, we are singing and dancing. It is part of the world building. It is how characters interact with the world.
Yeah.
Such as a Wicked, for example.
Mm-hmm.
They are walking down the streets. We are singing in the rain, even though that's not how anyone acts in real life. It becomes fantastical.
Yeah.
I will be considering music movies.
Yes,
in the sense that if the music is a part of the natural world about a band or characters that create music, if it's a music movie that is natural to the characters in the setting, I did include that.
I agree. And for the same reasons why I'm including concert films, I feel like the same explanation as to why I'm including that versus why you're including music movies is the same thing.
Exactly. I do feel like those are two very different things. Musicals and music movies.
Agreed.
The films function very differently, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I did want to distinguish that. Not including musicals, but music movies are on my list. Outside of that, that's really the only criteria I had.
All right. So we should expect no surprises this time.
Probably not. If you've listened to this show at all over the last 10 years, I'm who I am. I'm going with my gut instinct here. And we've never really done this exercise. We've never had this conversation before. So I didn't want to be a hipster about it. I just wanted to go with my heart here.
Mm.
So I'm not trying to subvert my own ethos here.
All good.
This is not going to surprise anybody. Okay. With that said, Brendan, number 5.
Number 5, a filmmaker who is known for making great soundtracks to his movies, the great Cameron Crowe, especially his earlier films.
Brendan, come on now.
Well, I guarantee we don't have the same movie.
Okay.
All right, because I know what one you're referencing. My number 5 is Singles from 1992.
Okay. But we do have Cameron Crowe at number 5.
Okay, so you have Almost Famous, right?
Yep, that's my number 5.
Well, that was a great honorable mention of mine, but I'm going with Singles for a couple reasons. I had a hunch you might have Almost Famous, so it's a nice way to add some variety to this conversation. I kind of predicted that. But I'm also a huge fan of that particular music scene represented in the movie Singles. The primary band that I play in right now is very much influenced by the likes of 90s rock groups like Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains and Soundgarden and Chris Cornell. And that's all this soundtrack really is, which includes even some greats that were written for the movie, such as State of Love and Trust by Pearl Jam.
Mm-hmm.
That's where that came from. Includes even some underrated hits by groups like Mother Love Bone, one of my personal favorites. So it's very much a subjective pick for me, but I also think it is one of those soundtracks that just does a great job establishing a real sense of place. Like the soundtrack, in a way, like all of these movies that we're going to talk about, it feels like a character in the movie because it actually works as a setting of sorts. It really establishes the world that these characters live in, the Seattle grunge scene in the 90s. It helps create that world and make it feel like it actually is a thing, which it actually was. But it makes you feel like you're a part of it. So in that way, it's a very great table setting to help establish that world. And that's why I love it so much. But Almost Famous is also a great soundtrack, as I'm sure you're going to explain why.
Yeah, I haven't seen Singles. That's a blind spot for me, so I can't really speak to it. But
Almost Famous is a better movie.
Yeah, I love Almost Famous. It's one of my very favorite movies of 2000. In fact, it was my number 1 when we did that retrospective last year.
Mm-hmm.
Deeply, deeply love this movie. And its soundtrack is such a vital part of its nucleus. And I love that it includes music from artists that we know and love in the real world, but also some great songs from the fictional band Stillwater. That's a part of the movie itself.
Oh yeah.
So it's great in terms of creating music for the movie with the fictional band that our characters are a part of and that we follow, but also including music from Led Zeppelin and Simon and Garfunkel and The Who. Famously Elton John, that Tiny Dancer sequence
Hold me closer,
is
Tiny
just so
Dancer.
good. Cat Stevens, like there's so many great songs that are just a part of the world and the soundtrack. That's incredible. And I also love the Stillwater elements as well.
Fever Dog is just awesome.
Fever Dog rules, dude. It's so good. Deeply, deeply love it. Honestly, I could make an argument that it's my favorite song on that soundtrack. As you know, and there's some great songs there, but I just love it. Absolutely love it.
I mean, as far as fictional bands, I mean, Stillwater is definitely high on the list. If we ever did like a top 5 of fictional music artists in movies, Stillwater would definitely be in the conversation.
Oh my gosh, yes. I agree. That would be another fun top 5 to do at some point.
Yeah.
Although
Spinal Tap, honestly.
I'll be perfectly honest, I don't know if that list would look a whole lot different than what this one is about to be, but
That's a fair point.
yeah, but good stuff though. That would also be a fun top 5, and I love the Stillwater of it all. But it's not, obviously it's much more than that, as I noted. All the other soundtrack music that Cameron Crowe uses here, it's perfect. And it fits this world impeccably. So
yeah.
Deeply, deeply love it. Almost Famous, my number 5. All right, number 4. What do you got at number 4?
Number 4 is my pick for a concert film, and it is arguably the greatest concert film of all time, and that's Stop Making Sense from 1984. Directed by Jonathan Demme, of course, a live performance of the Talking Heads, right around the time that they were releasing songs like Burning Down the House. So the interesting thing about this soundtrack and this movie in particular is that up until this movie, when I first saw it, I wasn't the biggest Talking Heads fan. I've always appreciated them as an early adopter of the new wave movement in post-punk and incorporating some funk and dance into their style. But it wasn't until seeing this movie and seeing them not just as a full 4-piece band, but being backed by some of the greatest musicians supporting them, such as Bernie Worrell, famously a Funkadelic and Parliament. It basically really reinforced my appreciation for what they did as a band and what David Byrne's genius ultimately was. And this is also one of those soundtracks that I can listen to as its own album and get so much enjoyment out of it. When I think of the Talking Heads and I think of my favorite songs from them, most of them are the renditions from this particular live performance. And I love how it's arced in such a way where each song basically builds off of itself, opening with just David Byrne doing a solo routine of Psycho Killer, I think it is, before each member slowly takes on the stage. A new one walks out, a new member walks out, and all of a sudden they're backed by what is essentially like a 10-man band, and people are dancing in the aisles. And the album itself, I think, showcases just how talented that they were. So for the sheer listenability of it all and the expansiveness of that sound, that's why I had to go with it here.
Yeah, this is a documentary / concert that I first watched, I think, during the pandemic. It was in 2020 sometime, I believe.
Yeah, you caught up with it pretty late.
I caught up with it somewhat recently, and I don't know if I love it as much as others do, but it is really great. And I do love the weird artistry on display. The music is obviously great. I'm not a Talking Heads head necessarily, not because I don't appreciate or like the music as much as I just don't have the experience.
You are a talking head, but you might not be a Talking Heads head.
Yeah, exactly. I love the artistry from them, the showmanship, the craft. It's great. Absolutely love how the film captures all of that from the group. I'm just not as familiar with the band like others are.
Sure.
And I have one or two things with the film itself that I don't love as much as others, but it's still really good. Still really, really good. And the music is great. So, yeah. Understandable. And honestly, coming from you, I would have maybe been disappointed if that wasn't on your list.
I know you should not.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have been surprising, right?
not at all surprised. All right, my number 4. I'm kind of going to the OG of film soundtracks, The Graduate from 1968.
Yeah, this is probably somewhere in my top 10.
Yeah, Simon and Garfunkel. And the thing about this as well, like I'm also not the biggest Simon and Garfunkel fan, but I love how their music here is an essence to how this film plays out.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible how it amplifies the film's emotion, the choices of the characters, and much of the drama that we see. It really is fantastic. Like the soundtrack is integral to the story and ultimately how it unfolds. And it's really great. So I think that's also why it makes my list here, is that it's a great example of how you don't have to be the biggest fan of an artist, but when they do something that is so compelling that you're able to transcend beyond your personal taste of the artist and see what they've crafted in a singular space.
Yeah.
That's Simon and Garfunkel here. I'm not seeking out their music outside of this film, but I would listen to this soundtrack and think about how the music plays underneath the scenes. I could do that all day, because it's a great movie. I love the movie. And again, much like many of the soundtracks we're about to talk about, you can't separate the music from the movie.
Right.
And this is, again, just one of those great examples.
Well, you're missing out on a pretty good discography if you only listen to Simon and Garfunkel for this soundtrack. They have some really great tunes outside of this. They're really quite amazing as a duo. But what I do love about this soundtrack as well, and why it would be somewhere in my top 10. It's not quite in my top 5. But the soundtrack basically functions like voiceover narration in a way. To your point, the way it fuses with the narrative, the way it's actually like a part of the storytelling itself,
it
is really clever. It's really clever, and I love the way it's handled there.
Yeah, and I also give it some weight, some heft here, not only because I'm able to transcend my own personal taste as it relates to Simon and Garfunkel.
Sure.
But again, also acting as kind of the OG of what we think about in terms of soundtrack music.
Mm-hmm.
Up until The Graduate, soundtrack music wasn't nearly as prominent as it is today.
Yeah.
It was kind of the first of its kind, of
creating
a trend, creating something that we're still feeling today.
It was the way they did that in the mid to late 60s. I have another film in my top 5 from the 1960s that you can almost put into that same conversation, but it really was a new movement that many of these movies were starting.
Absolutely. So I wanted to give it a little bit of weight for that as well. So
it is
my number 4.
It is certainly one of the most correct picks for this topic.
Yeah. All right, number 3. What do you got at number 3?
So my number 3, perhaps another very subjective pick for me. And you're going to notice that most of the films in my 5 are very subjective picks. They're very much Brendan picks, because as a musician, I'm influenced by these soundtracks, maybe in different ways that don't always necessarily serve the movie, right? I'm kind of looking at it in a very different way of thinking.
Okay.
My number 3 is maybe recency bias, because we just talked about this movie not too long ago.
K-pop Demon Hunters? Good job.
No, not
wow. What a surprise.
Not quite. Not that recent. When I say we recently talked about it, we recently reviewed it for a retrospective not too long ago. And of course, we still have Paul Thomas Anderson on the brain. So I'm going to go with Magnolia for my number 3.
Okay, a little Magnolia.
Yeah,
good stuff
of course.
Here. This is a great honorable mention. Yep.
That's good. Of course, the soundtrack here is, when we call these soundtrack albums, I feel like this is maybe one of the most literal examples of that definition, because the majority of this album is from one artist, and that is Amy Mann, which is really intriguing. And I love her songs. I love the way that they serve the movie. I love when the movie takes a bit of a pause to basically become a bit of a musical where all the characters sing Wise Up. It's a really weird choice, but it kind of works. And I do love the songs here, but the reason why I'm picking it here in my top 5 is because it was not just a formative film for me, but also a formative soundtrack for me as a music fan. Up until this point, I had a very selective library of music that I often listened to. Most of it was 1970s classic rock. That was really kind of my thing. But up until this soundtrack, or I should say, this soundtrack in a way was kind of the gateway for me to start checking out more alternative music, especially in the 90s. Because of this soundtrack and then my discovery of Amy Mann and also knowing her history as a great artist, the fact that she actually guest sung on a Rush song in the 80s, and I hadn't known that at the time, it got me interested in 90s alt-rock music such as Radiohead, for instance, or a great example being the great Fiona Apple. And I discovered her album When the Pawn. And coincidentally, Fiona Apple also worked with the great John Bryan, who is the composer for Magnolia. So I started noticing some of these tie-ins of these artists that would all work together. And it started to get me to appreciate a new form of music. So as an introductory point for me as a music fan and as a musician, Magnolia does hold a very special place for me. And that's why I had to include it on my list.
Yeah, no, that's very fair. I certainly don't have the history or connection that you do to Magnolia, thus the subjective pick there.
Yeah.
But I do love it. I really enjoy this music quite a bit. And again, it's one of those soundtracks that is so deeply associated with the film that every time I hear the music, I just think of the images from that movie. And it is quite incredible how her music, like almost, at least for me, again, and maybe it's just my unfamiliarity with Amy Mann, but like when I think about that film and what it's trying to accomplish, I don't know if she's the one that would initially come to mind to service that film until you see it play out, and now you can't see anyone else but Amy Mann doing the music for that movie.
And somehow that voice, her voice just fits this world
so
in a way.
good. Yeah.
Like there's something so raw and honest and almost broken about it. Like it's speaking from the hearts of each of these characters in a way.
Yeah, like it almost has this, and I don't know if this is the right way to phrase it, but it almost has this angelic biblical quality that fits that film. Like
I can see that.
Like it just, I don't know. I don't know if I'm describing it appropriately, but to me, it just kind of fits the mold.
There's something
of that
ethereal
movie.
about it. Yeah, like almost otherworldly. Yeah, I get that. I get that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Love it. Yeah, absolutely love it. Magnolia, great honorable mention for me. All right, for my number 3, I'm going to pose this question, Brendan. What is your favorite track from Sing Street? Do you have one? Because I don't know if I can choose.
I don't know if I can choose. I mean, Drive It Like You Stole It should have been nominated for an Oscar because I could see everyone going for that one.
Not only nominated, it should have won the Oscar for Best Original Song.
As far as my fake history likes to tell me, it did win. So I'll just keep telling myself that.
Yeah.
I guess that's my favorite. It's kind of a basic pick from that movie, but it might be mine. Yeah, it might be my favorite.
It's so good. Yeah, I mean, I love this movie, and I love its soundtrack. Every song, honestly, is great. And that's why I pose the question that I do, because if you decided The Riddle of the Model is your favorite, okay, yeah, that's perfectly fine. Girls, you like Girls? That's fine too. I like Girls. Yeah, Brown Shoes, also good.
A good punk
there's
song.
some really great stuff here, and then it also has My Namesake, Duran Duran is featured on this soundtrack.
That's true.
But aside from the other artists, Hall & Oates is also featured here. The Cure is on the soundtrack as well. But the star of the show is the fictional band Sing Street. I just love every song that is crafted here. John Carney, God bless you. You're one of the best. There are 2 John Carney films I wanted to have on my top 5 here. I guess if I had to include an extra criteria here, which I didn't really mentioned earlier, it's that I didn't want to have two films from the same director here.
It's
and I could have.
It's kind of interesting. Like even given that criteria, I'm surprised you went with Sing Street and not Once.
Well, it was a coin toss.
Okay.
That's what it was.
You
Sing Street won.
You have talked about Once quite a bit on this show.
I have.
So it's a nice way to change it up, I guess.
And look, I listened to both albums earlier today, and I cried, I laughed, I had the greatest time, and it was like choosing children. It really was. I deeply love.
Yeah.
If I could cheat here, I guess I would just have this be my John Carney pick.
Just call it Once Upon a Sing Street, and that's your pick.
Once Upon a Sing Street, exactly. Sing Street / Once is my number 3 if I am able to cheat here, because I absolutely love John Carney and his music capabilities. Even Begin Again, which I don't think is as good as a movie comparatively to those two movies, but I think the music is really great though.
Songs are pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, if anything, that film demonstrates his music prowess once again. But Sing Street especially, Once especially, those two films, there's not a single track that I dislike. I think they're all phenomenal. And I feel the same about Falling Slowly as I do about Drive It Like You Stole It. And thankfully, Falling Slowly did win the Oscar, so at least it has that going for it. But Drive It Like You Stole It should have shared in that honor. And to your point, Brendan, I guess we can pretend.
We can manifest history. Yeah.
Because it was the InSession Film winner for Best Original Song that year for you and I.
That matters.
So that counts.
Yeah.
That
counts. Yeah, that absolutely counts.
And we didn't do an InSession Film Awards for the year Falling Slowly came out, but if we did, that would have been my winner as well. So this is my John Carney slot. I mean, pick either one. I think he's excellent. I love both of those movies, and the music in both of them is just immaculate. Nothing short of sublime.
I don't know if Sing Street is the better movie, but I do prefer its soundtrack over Once. And not because I think the songs are better, but I like the arc of those songs in Sing Street. The fact that each song has sort of its own genre classification, because it's meant to mirror the growth of a young kid learning to not just become a musician, but learning what his artistic tastes ultimately are.
The band evolves as the film goes. Mm-hmm. And so, he experiments, he tries different things, and that is very much a part of the soundtrack.
And as someone that started playing music at the age of 11, I can relate to what Connor goes through in that movie.
That's fair.
Yeah. So you start off at a young age, you latch onto something you love, and then you want to write a song like that. Oh, you discover something new again. Oh, let's write a song like that, which is why it shifts from like new wave music to punk music to it has all of those things, and I love that trajectory. I actually think that's a really interesting artistic choice.
I agree. I mean, Once is a very different movie, so obviously it doesn't follow that format. And I certainly don't fault the film or the soundtrack for that.
No.
But you are right. That is compelling about Sing Street for sure. And I love how really with both albums, going back to the whole Lin-Manuel Miranda thing that he tried to accomplish with The Lion King and failed miserably. But what he tried to accomplish in terms of unskippable tracks, that's exactly how I feel about Sing Street and Once. There's not a skippable track.
They're great albums.
On either soundtrack.
They are great albums, absolutely.
Yeah. Agreed. So John Carney is my number 3. All right, number 2. What do you got at number 2?
Number 2, yet another Brendan pick. And this is, in many ways, this might be my favorite simply because it's the soundtrack album I probably listened to the most. And it was another formative one for me. But I'm going to put it at number 2 because what I have at number 1, I think I can argue more objectively for. My number 2 is Quentin Tarantino's Jackie Brown from 1997.
Oh, yeah. This is a great honorable mention. This might be 6 or 7 for me. I didn't really list out a 6 through 10, but it's probably in that range for me.
Yeah, what great soul music. And they even talk about the music in this movie, especially Robert Forster's character of Max Cherry and how he wants to try to find a way to relate to Jackie herself, ends up going and buying, I think, a Delphonics cassette tape the next day after they talk about it at her apartment. I think that's a really sweet gesture. And it's a sweet movie. It's a nice movie, and I love that about it. But I had to have it on my list for a lot of the same reasons why I had Magnolia. That movie was very much a kind of a gateway for me into a new type of music I hadn't really paid attention to. Jackie Brown was kind of the same way, but this time for 1970s soul music and funk music. And since then, I've become a huge fan of that movement of music. It might even be my favorite genre of music in a lot of ways. And it's also interesting that the film's main theme of sorts, Across 110th Street, was actually written for another movie called Across 110th Street. So, and yet many people now associate that song not with the movie it was originally written for. Instead, they associate it with Jackie Brown. It's fascinating, which just goes to show how smart Tarantino is when it comes to picking music for his movies. And he always is. He has been great at that in every one of his movies. Even if I'm not the biggest fan of one of his movies, I think the soundtrack is always very good. But I do think Jackie Brown is his best. At the very least, it's my personal favorite.
Yeah. So before I get into the Jackie Brown of it all, on Across 110th Street, one of my very, very favorite sports podcasts that I listen to is a Michigan sports podcast. And the opening of their show is essentially the instrumental of that, but it's remixed a little bit. And that's how they open their show every single week. I don't know how they get away with it, honestly.
That sounds like a massive copyright issue. I mean, geez, where's the Bobby Womack estate on that one?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. And maybe it's remixed enough that it hasn't got them in. I don't know. I honestly don't know. But every time I think about that song, I can't help but also associate it with that show, which I love. It's a great sports podcast. But
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'll have to listen to that. I want to hear what version they're using, if it even is the same version.
I'll try to find it and send it to you. I might be able to find it.
Okay, I'm really curious. Yeah,
like the actual instrumental they use, and I'll send it to you. But yeah, this is another one of those soundtracks where, again, I'm not the music head that Brendan is. Like 98% of the music I listen to is film score, or perhaps appropriately movie soundtracks.
At this point now, it's movie scores and 9 Inch Nails. That's all JD listens to.
It's scores and soundtracks, but a lot of the artists on said soundtracks, I don't always follow outside of the movie, if that makes sense. Sometimes that is the case. Oftentimes, that's usually what I stick to. Yeah. And this is another great example where I love the songs here. I could listen to the soundtrack on repeat endlessly, but because I'm not a music head, I can't fully articulate what it is about the music in like this nerdy way, like Brendan can talk about the music here. I can't tell you about many of these artists in depth, or the songs, the history, the context of it. I can't articulate any of that. But what I can articulate is the emotional experience I have with the soundtrack and the music choices they make here. It's incredible, soulful, and it fits the world of Jackie Brown wonderfully. And I love it. I deeply, deeply love it. So totally there with you on that.
So good. So good, my man.
Okay. Are you ready to get controversial here?
Well, it depends. Okay. It depends. Are you going against your criterion? Do I have to yell at you again for 30 minutes?
Maybe. So we're gonna see here, because the pick that I have here, it does involve score, and it's a bit of a gray area because the music for this film, while it acts as score, simultaneously, spiritually, you can argue for soundtrack, because the music is very much in line with the type of music they create outside of the movie.
I have a guess as to what your number 2 is. I have 2 guesses, I should say. And
Okay.
if either one of those is correct, I'm going to allow it.
Okay. What are your
I'm-
guesses?
I'm guessing either Tron Legacy or The Social Network.
Tron Legacy, yes.
Okay.
That's what I have here. Now, look, I can throw once into this conversation and genuinely instead of be like, okay, that's my number two. That's fine if we're not going to allow it. But Tron Legacy is the movie that I was thinking of specifically. And
I'm going to allow it. I mean, it is functioning as both a score and as a soundtrack album in kind of different ways. Like to your point, it does sort of fit the definition in two ways. It's both in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And even though maybe it's cheating a little bit, I don't know. But
Yeah, I
a
don't know.
lot of the music here also again, it feels very Daft Punk in how they would craft music on their own outside of the movie.
That's why I brought up The Social Network and why I would have allowed that as well. Even though that's not Nine Inch Nails, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross are current members of Nine Inch Nails. It's a different compositional style with something like The Social Network, but the compositions for these movies are very song-like.
They're very song-like.
And that's the difference.
And in the spiritual ethos of how they typically create music, again, on their own terms.
Yeah.
So Tron Legacy, and that's what makes Daft Punk perfect for this world, because their music, it melds aesthetically perfectly and tonally and in terms of vibes. Like there's just a lot of fun. Now, maybe they throw in more orchestra than typically what you get in a Daft Punk album, but I also feel like that's where, again, it's a bit of both. To your point, there is a bit of a gray area because it is acting as score. Some tracks are heavily leaning on the orchestra, but sometimes it's just fully Daft Punk.
Yeah.
And those are the tracks on the album that resonate maybe the most with me, especially in this context when we're talking about soundtracks. So I do think it does fit the mold of soundtrack. Yeah. And if it's a cheat, if people disagree with me, that's fine. If they think that I'm manipulating the system here, but I think it fits enough. And I think it's such a banger. Again, unskippable. Everything is fantastic. It gives me chills. And I never get tired of listening to that soundtrack.
Yeah, this
freaking rules.
It's all about how the music is conveyed in a movie, because the original compositions for something like Tron Legacy, and for that matter, The Social Network, which I brought up earlier, I think that's another great example. When you hear them in the context of the movie, they kind of sound more like needle drops than they do original compositions.
That's a great way to articulate it.
Yeah, they're not as reliant on how they fit the editing style of the movie. Because when you listen to a score album, for instance, anything by, let's say, John Williams or your boy Steve Jablonsky, right? Yep. They don't necessarily follow static tempos. There's a lot of tempo shifts and swells in order to match the movements of the movie that has already been edited. So they don't feel song-like. They're not driven by a static beat, if that makes sense. But Tron Legacy is not that. These feel like songs that were designed to fit a movie. And I think
agree. Yeah. I don't know if I could have articulated it as well as you did, but thank you for making the argument for me.
You're welcome.
That's exactly how I feel.
I'm not going to push back on this one.
And Derez is an actual song they created for the movie. So there already is one actual song that they incorporate. But even tracks like Rinsler, for example, even The Grid, though Tron Legacy that you get at the end, those especially, to your point, feel like needle drops. Yeah. That were just drafted for this movie that they just dropped in. And there's certainly other examples that you can bring up as well. But that's exactly how the score functions. It feels like they came up with 22 needle drops that are just very Daft Punk. Maybe you throw in a little orchestra into some of them, and then they just dropped them into the movie. Yeah. And again, that's why they were perfect for that film. And I love it. It is 58 minutes long, and it's 58 minutes of a masterpiece.
Well,
Easily one of my favorite soundtracks ever.
Daft Punk was one of the best to do it in their in their specific genre.
Exactly. I deeply love it. And again, ironic because it's not a type of music I listen to that I seek out necessarily, but I love it. I think it's a lot of fun. And I have listened to some Daft Punk outside of film. I just think they're a lot of fun, but yeah, I love this soundtrack. I think it's great. And I wanted to fight for it. Wanted to champion it.
Yeah, this one I'm not going to push back on. This will not be like it was last week when you tried to bring up the Sandlot or sports conversation.
Look, I'm not backing down. Not backing down.
No, I think this is it is a bit of a tricky one with Tron Legacy, but I think there's a lot you can argue in favor of including it here.
I agree. Totally agree. All right, number one. What do you got at number one?
Number one, going back to the 1960s, and we talked about this, how many films in the 1960s, this is where movies started to incorporate soundtracks or the soundtrack album as almost like a companion piece of sorts to their respective movies, and how they help tell the story. My number one, I'm going to the year 1968, Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh man, I love this. I was so close to picking this one as well.
Good to hear.
If Jackie Brown is 6 or 7, then this is the other one fighting for.
Gotcha. So just rounding out the 6 or 7 spot between those two films. Well, that's cool to hear. This one's interesting too. This is not as to the more ignorant observer who might not be as in tune with movies as we are. They might not even know that this is actually a soundtrack and not an original score. There was originally intended to be an original score to this movie, but Stanley Kubrick ended up pushing back on that and opted for really just classical music here. Didn't
the composer actually craft a whole score, or at least part of a score? And then he just threw it out.
He did, yeah. Very much a Stanley Kubrick thing to do, right?
Yeah,
exactly. I believe it was the same composer on Spartacus, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. I think that is correct. Yep.
Yeah. So, but for those who maybe watched 2001: A Space Odyssey for the first time, you might think that, Richard Strauss's, I can never pronounce this right, also struck Zarathustra. I can never pronounce it right, but you might think that's an original composition for this movie because it's part of the 2001 iconography.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
It absolutely is, but this is a collection of pre-written classical music. So it very much is a soundtrack. Doesn't just include Richard Strauss, but also includes the likes of Georgi Ligeti, Johann Strauss II. They're incorporated into this as if it were a soundtrack. And I love how it sort of exists in its own unique way as a classical soundtrack album. And yet something about it makes the movie feel like it ultimately is some type of, I often call it a ballet, the way that we see all of these spaceships just literally dance around each other in outer space. But I think the best way to call this, or the best thing to call this rather, it's literally a space opera. That's what this is. It's a space opera in the most literal way. And I love how it exists in this own unique kind of space. I think it's one of the most intriguing soundtracks that kind of got ahead of the curve without really pointing the finger at itself that it was ahead of the curve. It did it very cryptically, which I really love. So 2001. This is the one I felt like I had to go with just to, really pick an objective film pick here to round out the conversation.
No, I love it. I think this is a really inspired pick. I deeply love it. Thought about it a lot as well. And it is interesting because that Richard Strauss track that you mentioned, it was composed in 1896.
Yeah.
But don't tell any other cinephile that. They think that it was composed for 2001: A Space Odyssey. And for all intents and purposes, it might as well have been, right? Because that's what we mostly associate it with. It would have been fascinating to see Strauss's reaction to that track being used in that film, because it is I don't know what it took for Kubrick to land on that specific track, but genius. However he got there, utterly brilliant. It is perfect. And all of the other work from Strauss or Ligeti that he uses throughout that film, it is, as you noted, it is a space opera, and it is operating as an opera in the literal sense. And the music is very much indicative of that. I agree with you. Love it. Great movie. One of the best movies of all time. I know that's a hot take, so feel free to take a second to soak that in. But great movie, and the soundtrack is killer. Even if it's a bunch of old white dudes composing classic tracks. But it's the best.
Mostly old white European dudes.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, good stuff. I love that. 2001 Space Odyssey, great honorable mention. For me, my number one, again, very much a JD pick here. But what's fascinating about this album is that it introduced me to a world that I really had never spent more than 5 minutes in. I had never really dabbled into the world of folk music before.
Oh, and please, now, Mr. Kennedy, come on, tell me why you love this.
And now I deeply love it. It is one of my favorite genres that I listen to. Again, I can't tell you artists or songs. I'm not a music head in the same way that Brennan is, or a lot of you listening might be. But I love listening to that genre of music. Yeah, Inside Llewyn Davis is my number one.
Great pick.
I have listened to this soundtrack probably more than any other. I like the soundtrack. It's great. Obviously, it's very, very good. But the soundtrack is in many ways the catalyst to not only my love for folk now, as I just noted, but my love for the film itself. Because the first time I saw Inside Llewyn Davis, I didn't think that it was a masterpiece.
Took some time, yeah.
Didn't necessarily consider it to be the best directed film of the 2010s, or that it had some of the best performances of the 20. Like, it did take some time for me to get to that point, but now I do think it is one of the very best movies of the 2010s. It was, I think, my number 2 when we did that top 10 for the 2010s.
Yeah, absolutely, it was
one of my favorite directed movies of all time. Oscar Isaac probably should have won an Oscar.
I would agree.
Gives one of the best leading male performances of that decade, of the 21st century to this point. It is a stunning performance, really, really good. And the album is crucial, absolutely crucial to the storytelling, to the characterization of that movie, to the emotional arc of that movie. It is at the nucleus of that film and what it's trying to do. And not only is the film great as a result, but just in terms of the soundtrack, again, I love it. And I don't know where to start. Hang Me, Oh Hang Me. Just like the way Oscar Isaac sings that song in that film, incredible. Fare Thee Well.
Fare Thee Well is the one that gets me.
So good with the accompaniment of Marcus Mumford there as well.
Yeah.
500 Miles is a lot of fun with Justin Timberlake and Carey Mulligan. Green Green Rocky Road, love that as well. The Death of Queen Mary Jane, which is the song that he sings at during the Chicago scene, that is so devastating and heartbreaking. Love that as well. The Shoals of Herrick is fantastic. It's really great. And of course, as Brendan somewhat joked about already, you can't forget about Please Mr. Kennedy, which is one of the weirdest songs I've ever heard in my life, and I love it. Absolutely love it. Again, an unskippable track, and it gives weight, it breathes life into folk in ways that I had just never heard before. And I love it. And so the whole Dave Van Ronk album that obviously inspired much of Inside Llewyn Davis, I've listened to that as a result. I've listened to that whole album several times over.
Yeah.
And have fallen in love with that as well. In fact, I've loved that album so much, and we've talked about this on the show before, that when I think about where Dave Van Runk's career went afterwards, I try to associate that with Lewin. Like I want that for Lewin as well. Like I just love that character so much.
It's great. It's great.
It's so like the soundtrack has inspired so much in me as it relates to that film, and not just that film, but how I feel it registers in terms of all-time cinema, particularly the 21st century and the 2010s. And I deeply, deeply love it. I don't think I really have the words to articulate how much I love it as much as I've tried here, but I listen to this soundtrack all the time still, all the time, and it still gives me the same feelings now as it did back in 2013.
Yeah. Coen brothers are also very good at soundtracks when it comes to many of their movies. At least those that have songs in them and aren't just, score compositions by Carter Burwell or something like that.
Yeah.
I almost considered this as somewhere in my top 10, but I will admit a movie like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is probably in my 6 through 10. Like that's the one I might go with a little bit more, but Inside Llewyn Davis is certainly the better movie. On some days it is my favorite Coen Brothers movie. I know a lot of people do feel that way.
It's my number one.
Yeah, number 2 or 3. I still love Fargo. That might still be my number 1, but this could be a number 2 for me.
Sure. Yep. Yeah, really love it. And I love Oh Brother, We're Out There as well. And again, if I wanted to consider, and maybe I could honestly do the same thing here as I did for John Carney at number 3 and just include Oh Brother with Inside Llewyn Davis. I could cheat, I guess, in the same sense. Because you are right. The Coens are fantastic in terms of soundtrack as well.
Oh Brother, Where Art Llewyn Davis.
Yeah, and if not for that criteria, I mean, Oh Brother might have made this. Maybe Once and Oh Brother would have also been in there. But again, I didn't want to congest my top 5 with just the same directors and styles. But yeah, I love that soundtrack as well, though. Oh Brother freaking rules. It's
so good. But yeah, that would have been an honorable mention of mine. Oh Brother and Inside Llewyn Davis also very close to those honorable mentions.
Any other honorable mentions you want to toss out here real quick?
I will say what my 6 through 10 is at this point. My number 6 was a movie I've talked about a little bit on this podcast. It's one I don't think you've seen yet, and that's from 1991. It's a movie called The Commitments. Alan Parker's The Commitments. It's an Irish movie about soul music as well, but I feel like a movie like Jackie Brown was really my placement to talk about soul music as it relates to soundtracks. So I didn't want to repeat myself too much, but The Commitments is a very good soundtrack as well. Also considered The Graduate, also considered Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Another 60s movie that I think should be talked about as far as great soundtrack albums that were sort of predictive and how they could function. Easy Rider, Dennis Hopper's Easy Rider, I think is another great example of that. And I also want to highlight the great 3-6 Mafia and Hustle.
Oh, yeah. I heavily thought about that too.
Yeah. So that would probably be my 6 through 10. As far as other honorable mentions, I don't know if I want to bother naming them because I have like 40 movies listed here.
Yeah. No, and I hear you. And that's kind of how I was. I didn't really list out a 6 through 10. I mean, I could kind of formulate something here on the spot. I mean, I talked about how I heavily considered Jackie Brown in 2001. Those were very much on my list. Pulp Fiction is another one of those that I heavily considered here. And that's the one soundtrack that's probably the most tied to my nostalgia.
Sure.
As that film, I know it's somewhat cliche now, but that film came out at a time, I was too young when it first came out, but I transitioned into high school not too many years after the fact. So that's a film that started to formulate my cinephile-dom in a way, and the soundtrack is obviously a big part of it, and I still think that soundtrack is quite great.
I agree.
Hustle and Flow, I very much considered here as well. That was something I thought about. Do the Right Thing might round out my top 10. That's another soundtrack that was heavily on my list here. And again, I guess I'll just start naming a bunch of films that I heavily consider, but Goodfellas, I think, is really great. Superfly, Saturday Night Fever, Top Gun. I heavily thought about Top Gun.
Oh, yeah.
Freaking love that. Train Spotting, I thought about. Dazed and Confused. I also love the soundtrack to Boyhood as well. Linklater's another great one.
Yeah, he's another great one. Another one of those filmmakers that knows how to craft a soundtrack.
Yeah. Juno, A Star is Born, I really love. Underratedly, The Beach Bum, Harmony Korine, Spring Breakers, you
gosh.
could also throw in there as well.
Yeah.
The Royal Tenenbaums, I thought about here, and Rushmore. I love Anderson's work with soundtrack. Marie Antoinette, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Guardians of the Galaxy, Midnight Cowboy, Magnolia. I thought about. I mentioned earlier Black Panther, Easy Rider. You talked about, and then a few others here that I think are underrated. Jessie Buckley in Wild Rose, I think is really great. Love that soundtrack.
Yeah.
I love that she went around promoting that song everywhere. I don't even think it got nominated. I think it's a goddamn shame.
That's unfortunate.
But, like her just going around singing that song, I never got tired of it. Warrior, I think, has some interesting uses of soundtrack as well.
That's an inspired choice.
And then the last one here, and this is a little bit of that blurring of the lines between score and soundtrack, but Swiss Army Man, I always thought was really fun.
Oh, okay. That's a pretty clever one. Yeah. Okay.
How they used songs in this interesting way that sort of played a score, but were also actual songs. So I always thought that was really fun. So I thought that was a good honorable mention anyway.
Yeah. Did you say Drive? The Ryan Gosling,
No, I didn't say Drive, but
that's one I want to highlight too. There's also a lot of films that the Beatles starred in, such as A Hard Day's Night or Help, that we should also consider here. I'm glad you brought up A Star is Born. I talk a lot about how I'm a huge fan of 1970s soul music and many other genres that might be similar in that regard, but I'm also a big fan of certain subsets of modern country music, and many of my favorite modern country artists are actually either songwriters or producers on the Star is Born soundtrack, such as Jason Isbell or Lucas Nelson. So I love a lot of that as well. I also want to highlight a very recent film. Sinners has a great soundtrack.
Sinners, yeah,
and I think that's one we might be talking about in a few years. I think that
I agree. If we revisit this list down the road, that'll probably be talked about or mentioned. Yeah, love that as well. This was a fun list. I obviously have a lot more on this list. I tried to limit my honorable mentions.
I do too. I do too.
I probably have 70 films listed here. I don't know if it's that much, but it feels like it.
But I'm pretty close. At least 50.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. Anyway, this was a lot of fun. If you agree or disagree with our picks, leave a comment below. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky. You can email us InSessionFilm, InSessionFilm@gmail.com. All right. Before we get out of here, a couple of quick notes. We have 2 reviews out this week. The Smashing Machine, the Benny Safdie film. We talk about that. And also the new Ronan Day-Lewis film starring the great Daniel Day-Lewis in Anemone, or as we like to call it, Anemone. But that was a really great conversation with Megan Kearns. You can go and check that out. New Chasing the Gold. So Chasing the Gold is ramping up with Oscar season starting to become full bloom. New York Film Festival is going to wrap up kind of soon. The main fest are kind of out of the way. So within the next few months, it's going to start turning into the Guild. So it's going to be quite interesting. So Chasing the Gold is ramping up. Last week, they had an episode about the craft categories. If you want to check that out, this week, they're talking about all the above the line categories. So you can be on the lookout for that. New Women in Session at the end of the week as well. Lots happening at InSessionFilm.com with Dave and the writers, especially with the festival stuff going on. They're doing great work. So please go and check all of that out as well. So very, very busy around these parts. Also want to thank our patrons and InSession Film VIPs. If you support us on Patreon or through YouTube membership, Apple podcast subscriptions, however you support the show, we really do appreciate you. You guys are the absolute best. We cannot do this without you. So thank you for your support.
Absolutely.
Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Subscribe on Apple Podcast, however you're listening to us. We want to be able to reach your ears each and every week. Brendan, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
I like music.
Music is good. Yeah,
Music and film. That's the greatest thing.
Love it. I think that's a great final word, so we'll leave it at that. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on the InSession Film Podcast.